So we're really looking forward to your upcoming release. And in as part of Indus Age in Australia, we have some questions that I bet the South, not only the South Asian community, but the entire Australian people would love to know about this upcoming film. Richa, you worked in movies that have moved from cult to classic in Indian cinema. You've been awarded one of India's highest honor, the Bharat Ratna, for your contribution in the Indian film industry. How did you prepare for this body of work? And what has been your greatest inspiration?
So I've been awarded the Bharat Ratna Ambedkar Award, which is
Correct.
conferred by the governor of Maharashtra. And specifically, I think it was to do with contribution to cinema and also charity during the Corona period. Um, I've actually had a pretty career full of ups and downs. Knowing you might be knowing that it's harder for people who do not belong from the film industry to break into the film industry. So um, yes, I've been a part of some great films, but I've also done some really trashy films. But the only good thing about it is that all my success and my failures is all my own. I've sort of built this, brick by brick, and I feel really happy about that because every once in a while I get something amazing to do, something that is completely perhaps going to alter how I look at the world. And this film is one of those. So I'm very happy and I prep for my films in a particular way. And I've worked very hard on this one too. And I hope that people like it.
Great. Madam Chief Minister, as you will be called in this film, hopefully, was shot in Lucknow, a very vibrant city in northern India. In the city's backdrop, what is this film about, and who does it portray, or is it fictional?
So this film has been shot in Lucknow and in and around the villages of Lucknow, the outskirts, and because this film has the context of the caste system and the caste sort of politics in northern India, and pretty much caste fault lines exist all over the country. Uh, we had to shoot it in that belt, and it really helped because I could see for myself the things that were topics and subjects that we were tackling through scenes in the film was actually something that we could see unfolding in the village. Uh, we had a clearly demarcated area of which village belonged to which caste, even though they're not too far apart from each other, maybe only 500 meters. Like whose well was situated where and who could draw water from that well, whose buffaloes could graze in whose fields or not at all, etc. And um, it really helped. Uh, it really helped in the filmmaking process because the space itself is a character. And I would say the film is totally fictional. And if at all, if people think that it reminds them of somebody, it's natural for that assumption to also arise because there has been no other Dalit chief minister female in India. Um, so when people think that it looks like Mayawati ji, or I just want to say that the director used to be a political journalist.
Right.
So he's taken a lot of his anecdotes from his time in journalism, from his time interacting with leaders and politicians at election rallies, at press conferences. He's crafted a story which is which has got elements of female leaders from all over the subcontinent, not just India. So there's a bit of Benazir Bhutto in there, maybe some element from her life,
Mhm.
uh, some elements from the life of perhaps Jayalalitha ji or Mamta Banerjee. So it's like that. It's like an amalgamation of many things. So it doesn't belong to any one particular person, and it's definitely fictional because you can't really. I mean, it's really hard to make political films in India. You can't really make an out and out biopic and do that.
Yeah. I think of your past body of work, a lot of your characters, I would believe, are based on realism. There is there's a sense of reality in whatever you have portrayed. In this movie, it appears that you portray a woman's story in Indian politics, a formidable female minister who rises above patriarchy, social suppression, cultural differentiation, what you talked about just a little bit before. So, what does this sort of a film that you worked on so hard say about the spirit of India?
I mean, look, it's been a few years since a few over 7 decades since we achieved independence, and what was on paper seeming like an achievable target or an ideal, which is the constitution, uh, is so far from being actualized in our daily lives that it hurts me. As a young person who has lived all her life in this country, I want us to move past the stigma of the system that has been going on for the past, say, 3,000, 4,000 years, because it serves nobody. It's extremely regressive. It's like it's a shackle. It's like driving with a handbrake on. So I think the spirit of India currently is down but not out. Is a bit broken, but there's nothing that we can't heal together. The current farmers' protests that are happening are giving me a lot of hope. Um, and I do believe that um, as artists, it's our job really to hold up a mirror to society. And even though this film is like about this one girl and the story of an underdog, the undercurrents I hope that people realize. Um, and even if it triggers a thought in them, if it provokes them to think, I feel like my job is done.
That's great. In India recently, much like this film, there has been a certain rise in not really political films, but political features in the Indian film industry, broadly speaking, or historic characters. Would
Mm.
you call this film a film on politics, or a film on feminism, or just a fictional film?
I would really just call this a film about the underdog and the underdog at the lowest level of society in terms of both gender and caste. So, in terms of social stature, she is at the very bottom. And that's what's exciting, that she becomes the chief minister of India's most populous state. So that for me is the exciting story of this. And her troubles only begin once she becomes the chief minister, because God forbid a woman is leading, and that to a woman from an oppressed background. Can you imagine what that does to her political opponents? Always plotting to murder her, destroy her, kill her. Um, and her troubles really begin from there. So, this is essentially the story of this one woman, her rise to the top, and what power does to her. And what essentially power does to anybody when you have to hold on to it
Right,
for the sake of the larger good.
right. Wow. I'm really looking forward to this movie. My next question would be, it just in the Indian context or the global context for your craft or across your body of work, who have been your biggest inspirations? It could be anyone, fictional or real, or someone who's been portrayed in a movie. Who's been your inspiration, not only for this film, but your entire body of work?
I actually, when I was beginning my career, I ended up watching a lot of Meryl Streep films, and it's so cliche to say that for actresses, but I'll give you an example. It's like, uh, the thing is, we tend to slot people very easily and say, oh, she's an art house actress, she's serious actress, commercial actress, item song girl, or these things, the popular nomenclatures of Bollywood.
Right.
But as an exercise, I watched Sophie's Choice,
Mhm.
which is Meryl Streep's like landmark, fantastic performance. Then watched Devil Wears Prada, diametrically opposite, a commercial film.
Mhm.
Then watched Out of Africa, a really deep, very sensitive, very sort of exacting performance. And then I watched Death Becomes Her, which is essentially a comedy, very absurd comedy about a woman who's walking around with a hole in her stomach.
Yes.
And from that, I understood what range is. So my whole quest is to have range, to have versatility, and to humanize my characters. So I keep striving for that time and again. And I experiment, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. I'm very aware of that. But I have no regrets about it.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
Mhm.
So, talking about range, what are the future upcoming projects that we should look forward to?
Well, I'm currently in the North Indian state of Uttarakhand, which is by the Himalayas. Very, very cold here. And I'm working on a series called Candy, which is about a sort of psychological horror, supernatural space where I play a cop for the first time. Next, I'm doing a show with Tingmanshu Dhulia, which is another really interesting, based on a page turner by the Kasparov called Six Suspects. And uh, then I'm working on Fukre, the third part of the franchise. Again, comic, light, funny. And after that, I'll go on to work on serious drama, which has a lot of action. So I'm trying to have range. I'm trying to take some time off also in the middle and keep working. And yeah, this is all I want to do. It makes me happy, and I hope that it can affect some change in the world too.
Yeah, I hope so too. Um, an actor's life is open to both appreciation, as you have in the past, and criticism, which can be quite terrible at times. What is your recommendation to handling both, and how have you done so too?
I actually don't take it too seriously. I don't take the appreciation also too seriously because it can really get to you. I don't ever want to become the sort of person who refers to themselves in third person or who has a real attitude about them. And so I don't read the good reviews so much. I don't read the glowing op-eds when they come. And at the same time, when the online lynch mob of cancel culture descends on me for some tweet or like happened with this poster, I don't take that too seriously also because stardom itself is very fickle. And I just feel like I should have a clean conscience and I operate from that space. So if I feel like I need to set the record straight, I will. I will just not miss my words. I will put out a statement and I will clarify what I need to from my end. But I don't take it too seriously. And I don't. My only advice to people, any kind of artist, is not to take it too seriously because I feel like वो हम पे हावी हो जाता है. It weighs us down. We stop thinking like artists, like creators, like people who are hungry to experiment and try something new
True.
or make something interesting and cool and experimental, and we get trapped in our own image. And this can happen to anybody, the best of us, the worst of us. This is something I'm conscious of. Uh, Having said that, it's not always easy. You do need your regular friends to tell you what is what and give you that space for criticism and objectivity in your life. Yeah, that's about it. I think my only advice is to not take any of this too seriously.
That's great. In the Indian film industry in the future, I don't know if you've thought about that, but have you imagined yourself doing anything else other than acting, maybe directing, producing, script writing?
I would, yeah, I would definitely write
Yeah,
and produce. I would love to write. I mean, I'm trying to write at least something or the other is always growing in my head. I don't think I want to direct because it's a lot of work. Because you are in charge and you have to sit on the scripting, you have to sit on the edit, and I just think simply I'm just too impatient a person to direct. But definitely, I would love to produce. I'd love to write. I'd love to produce so that I can give an opportunity to other outsiders like myself or other people who want to tell different stories, subaltern narratives, marginalized stories. Um, and yeah, I think it'll just flow because you don't need a break from acting. It can get a bit much because
Yeah.
you're constantly using your own face and body and voice. There's no off day. I can't switch off from this and do something else.
Right. I have final three questions that are very casual.
Yeah.
You use the word subaltern. It's actually how I would describe a lot of roles that you have played. I've enjoyed them as a South Asian person, but besides the strong element of realism that your work has had, which is so great. If you weren't an actor, if this wasn't the Hindi film industry, the Indian film industry wasn't your profession, what other alternative profession would you have chosen?
I could have been perhaps a photojournalist, um, or a dancer, either of this, like a classical dancer, something very, but something in the performing arts, something in media, because this has been my inclination since I was a kid, and this has been my only aptitude. I've never wanted to sort of um, study commerce, do an MBA, become a banker, or become a teacher, or any of
Right.
that. I've always wanted to use art as a tool for the things that I want to say and the change I want in society.
And for the Australian audience, your films have taken you to some fantastic places around India. Sometimes, big cities, and sometimes the rural backdrop of Lucknow, as you did in this movie. What are the three places that you would ever recommend to people coming from Australia to check out in India?
Oh, I think that, well, a few places that one must visit, especially if you're film lovers. One, uh, I think it's a no-brainer that you should visit Bombay, like Mumbai, the Bombay talkies, where the film industry actually was birthed and where we saw some great cinema emerging, cinema which was a confluence of cultures, a cinema which was largely secular, which played a role in nation building, and it's historical. It's like over 100 years old. Um, the second, and there's a lot of history and color and energy in the city of Bombay, which is unmissable. Like you somehow get addicted to it. I'm in the beautiful, peaceful, hilly area right now, but I'm missing Bombay, even though it's just chaos. But I'm really missing it. The second place I would recommend is Kashmir
Yes.
because it's beautiful. It's been riddled with conflict, with pain, with blood, and my heart hurts. But I really hope that art can make a difference. Art can bridge the gap. Art can become a talking point, and for the voices of the marginalized. And the third place, I would say, there's lots of beautiful places in India, which are, I mean, anybody will tell you go to Kerala or go to Jaipur, but um, in terms of shooting, I shot recently a film which was a bad film, but I shot a film in the rainforest between Mangalore and another place near it called Agumbe.
Mhm.
And there's a rainforest belt in Karnataka, in the southern state of Karnataka. It's
Wow.
beautiful. It's beautiful. It rains almost every day. It rains 6.5 days a week. When it's not raining, it's a miracle because it's a rainforest. But the wildlife is beautiful, the landscape is beautiful, and everything always is that beautiful misty overcast like Santosh Sivan cinematography, greenery, beautiful landscape. And these are underexplored locations for film shooting or for people to visit. So these are my three recommendations.
Wow, thanks for that. And I don't think we should be allowed to talk about traveling during lockdown because it's so hard to get out of town right now. My final question, and this can be off the record as well, it's not a political question. It's a question about women and the future of women in India. Kamala Harris, who is part South Asian descent, is being celebrated globally as entering the United States office as the future vice president of the United States of America. India has had its first female head of state in 1966, and has had formidable political female leaders, some of whom you mentioned, Mayawati and Jayalalita, who built amazing states. Lucknow still sees the effect of Mayawati in the past. To that thought, what do you think is the future for women in India and Indian women globally?
I think the future of India lies in the hands of the women. The women have to wake up and sort of, because at a very deep level, the rejection of the idea of the feminine is why we find ourselves in the state that we're in. The things that we are doing to ourselves, to each other. There's been a lot of toxicity and hatred that has grown in India, that has been manufactured, that people are encouraged to vent at each other on social media, etc. I feel it's a very deep-rooted rejection of the feminine. I see this rejection of the feminine in the sense when we hurt nature, it's Mother Nature. When we hurt India, it's Mother India, and people seem to have stopped having the regard. They think things can't get better, so they're like, oh, chodo na yaar, kya karna hai? That attitude doesn't get us anywhere, and I feel like um, if women can come together, in a bipartisan way, across party lines, if we can have more women in leadership roles, we'll see an end to a lot of things that are currently wrong, which stop us. Like, if I'm an educated, smart person and I want to be able to go out and work at 11 o'clock in the night, in most cities of India, I can't,
True.
including Delhi, which is my native
My
city.
native too. Yeah.
Unless I mean, I can have my car and drive over, but if I have to take public transport or be driving by myself, everyone will be constantly worried for my safety.
Yeah. And
It's
that's a
not the
very
case in Bombay.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a valid reason because we are constantly making global headlines for disgusting rape cases. So these, um, I feel like if we have more women in leadership roles, they will perform better. They will perform from the point of view of the nurturer. They will make sure that we, you know, for a lot of families, when the demonetization happened, which was announced so suddenly, the thing that kept them afloat was the Indian middle class woman's ability to keep some cash away from her husband, away from her kids, and in a safe somewhere, which would help them and tide over bad times. And some of that was destroyed because of demonetization, because those notes had to be exchanged. So I feel like a very formidable opposition to patriarchy, to growing fascism, has to come from women, and it will come from organized women. It will not come from some scattered hashtag on Twitter. It will come from actual groundwork. When you spoke of Kamala Harris, the woman that I think most inspires many of the women in the world is AOC. And when you watch the documentary about how people recruited her, identified her for having leadership skills, rooted for her, gave her campaigning funds, groomed her to be a leader, see what a difference it makes to the world. I want that kind of a movement to start in India, where we can do that for each other. It'll really, really make a big difference.
Well, that's actually the conclusion of our amazing interview. Thank you so much for your time, Richa. It was so wonderful speaking to you. I hope we didn't keep you too long.
Not at all. Thank you. I've been to Melbourne a few times for Me Too's festival, and I'm really excited for people to watch Madam CM there, because I've been there a few times and seen other films, be released there and be celebrated.
Yes, and the people of Australia look forward to seeing your film and continuing. They hope to continue to see your work in the future as well. Thank you so much, Richa.
Thank you.
Australia's first Indian magazine to have a national reach. Indus Age is the largest circulated South Asian magazine in Australia with 5 simultaneous editions. 55,000 copies printed monthly. 220,000 readers. Largest network of clients. Undisputed leader in community news. Indus Age is circulated in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane and Perth to over 525 outlets. Grab your copy now to get the latest on the community, news from India, Bollywood, music and much more. For more info, log on to www.indusage.com.au.